that the man whom the Lord chooses is the Holy One. You take too much upon yourselves, you sons of Levi. Then Moses said to Korah, hear now, you sons of Levi, is it a small thing to you that God, the God of Israel, has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to do the work of the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to serve them, and that he has brought you near to himself, you and all your brethren, the sons of Levi, with you? And are you seeking the priesthood also? Therefore, you and all your company are gathered together against the Lord. And what is Aaron that you complain against him? Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, but they said, we will not come up. Is it a small thing that you brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you should keep acting like a prince over us? Moreover, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you put out the eyes of these men? Will you not come up? We will not rather come up. Moses was very angry, and he said to the Lord, do not respect their offering. I've not taken one donkey from them, nor have I hurt one of them. And Moses said to Korah, tomorrow you and all your company be present before the Lord, you and they, as well as Aaron. Let each one take a censer and put incense in it, and each one of you bring a censer before the Lord, 250 censers, both you and Aaron, each with his censer. So every man took his censer, put fire in it, laid incense on it, and stood at the door of the tabernacle of meeting with Moses and Aaron. And Korah gathered all the congregation against them at the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the congregation. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. They fell on their faces and said, oh God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin and you be angry with all the congregation? So the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the congregation, saying, get away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Moses rose and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. And he spoke to the congregation, saying, depart now from the tents of these wicked men. Touch nothing of theirs, lest you be consumed in all their sins. So they got away from around the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood at the door of their tents with their wives, their sons, and their little children. And Moses said, by this you shall know that the Lord has sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of my own will. If these men die naturally like all men, or if they are visited by the common fate of all men, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord creates a new thing, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belong to them, and they go down alive into the pit, then you will understand that these men have rejected the Lord. It came to pass, as he finished speaking all these words, that the ground split apart under them, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households, and all the men with Korah with all their goods. And so they and all those with them went down alive into the pit. The earth closed over them, and they perished from among the assembly. And all Israel who were around them fled at their cry, for they said, lest the earth swallow us up also. And a fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering incense. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, tell Eleazar the son of Aaron the priest to pick up the censers out of the blaze, for they are holy, and scatter the fire some distance away. The censers of these men who sinned against their own souls, let them be made into hammered plates as a covering for the altar. Because they presented them before the Lord, therefore they are holy, and they shall be a sign to the children of Israel. So Eleazar the priest took the bronze censers which those who were burned up had presented, and they were hammered out as a covering on the altar, to be a memorial to the children of Israel, that no outsider who was not a descendant of Aaron should come near to offer incense before the Lord, that he might not become like Korah and his companions, just as the Lord had said to him through Moses. On the next day, all the congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, saying, you have killed the people of the Lord. Now it happened, when the congregation had gathered against Moses and Aaron, that they turned toward the tabernacle of meeting, and suddenly the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. And Moses and Aaron came before the tabernacle of meeting, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Get away from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." And they fell on their faces. Moses said to Aaron, "Take a censer, put fire in it from the altar, put incense on it, and take it quickly to the congregation. Make atonement for them, for wrath has gone out from the Lord. The plague has begun." Aaron took it as Moses commanded and ran into the midst of the assembly, and already the plague had begun among the people. So he put in the incense and made atonement for the people, and he stood between the dead and the living. So the plague was stopped. Now those who died in the plague were 14,700, besides those who died in the Korah incident. So Aaron returned to Moses at the door of the tabernacle of meeting, for the plague had stopped. You know, sometimes when you read passages like this, you can't help but just scratch your head. I mean, God had already made it clear that Moses was his chosen, appointed leader of his people. Aaron clearly was chosen by God, separated from among the Levites, to be the priest and his sons to the Lord. No question about it. But here they are, questioning God's arrangement. When they were confronted with this rebellion, Moses said something extraordinary. He said, if these men die like everyone normally dies, well then, maybe this was not of the Lord, but it's appointed. And once again, they complain, "You have killed." Now, how on earth was Moses supposed to be credited with killing these men when the earth did something Moses could not possibly have done to it? Never understood human nature. But sometimes it seems, in light of the overwhelming evidence, we continue to run headstrong into rebellion against God's arrangements. That's what we see here. And of course, Moses was very quick to point out, you're not challenging me. You're not challenging Aaron per se. You're actually challenging God. This is God's appointment. This is God's arrangement. And for you to lead this rebellion, you're actually rebelling against God. And why were you doing this? Why were any of them doing this? Because they said as much. We are just as holy as you. God is just as much among us as he is among you. You're no better than us. And so we see two groups, Korah, who's a Levite, probably felt slighted because his position was simply to be the furniture arranger, so to speak, in the tabernacle. He couldn't be a priest. His sons couldn't be priests. So he felt like maybe we've been slighted somewhat. What makes Aaron and his sons think they're better than the rest of us? And then there was Dathan and Abiram, probably angry over Moses' announcement that you're going to be wandering for 40 years in the wilderness. And then you follow that, chapter 15, we didn't read it, but there was a man caught picking up sticks on the Sabbath day, and Moses said he's to be executed without mercy. And they did. They executed the man for picking up sticks on the Sabbath day. So here are men questioning Moses' civil authority. Who are you to be a prince over us, to tell us what to do and what not to do? Two factions melding into one, opposing Moses, but in reality opposing God. All the congregation are holy, they claim. You know what's interesting? But God's leaders have often come under attack for being imperfect. Or maybe stated a different way, you're no different than the rest of us. It is absolutely the case that the leaders of God's people are just like other people. Elders, deacons, preachers, Bible school teachers, they all put their britches on the same way anyone else in the congregation does. And so yes, it's true. Leaders can sometimes be criticized because you're no better than the rest of us. It was true. Moses and Aaron were far from perfect. In fact, it wasn't long before this that Aaron, remember, had fashioned a golden calf and led all of Israel into idolatry while his brother Moses was on the mountain receiving the very commandments written by the very finger of God, prohibiting the thing Aaron was in the process of doing. So yes, Aaron was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, yet God chose him.